And welcome to Event Horizon, where today we have myself, Mr. Angus Mustang. We have Mr. Lord Raul Fuentes, and from Knights of the Storm in the Foxhole, Mr. Jason Barker. Welcome, gentlemen. You ready to talk some stuff?
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, gonna have a
Anything
good
but
time tonight.
yeah, just so hopefully, Jason, why don't you go on about the cryptids you were just talking about?
Oh yeah, just before we went live, we were talking about cryptids, and that was one of the topics. I actually had to look that word up, and cryptid is kind of like one of those things. It's some kind of an organism that we don't know about yet. And think of Bigfoot, right? Um, you talk about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever, and people think you're crazy. But I was sharing with Angus and Lord Raul there that I've seen some weird stuff that I've snapped a picture of and Googled it. You can't find it. You can't find it on Google. It doesn't know what it is. So I honestly believe that whatever the definition of cryptid is, I think 100%. We'd have to be arrogant to think that humanity has discovered everything there is to discover on this earth. Especially when we're finding new stuff at the bottom of the ocean all the time. You know, stuff that doesn't require sunlight to live, that works off of geothermal heat. Animals that can make themselves glow. I'm sure you've seen that, right, Angus?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff. What's that? The Montauk monster that washed up on the beach in, I think it was Long Island.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is right near Plum Island, where they do all the biological and not COVID, but other supposedly Lyme disease came from there.
Yeah, I would say that I guess the biggest debate would be whether this is a new species we don't know about, and we discover new species of plant life all the time. So like I said, I think it's arrogant to think we haven't discovered, or that we've discovered all of species of animals there are. But I think the biggest debate would be whether it's actually a new species that's existed that we haven't found, or whether it was a random genetic mutation. Maybe that's an argument you can have to say, okay, this isn't something we missed. This is some random anomaly that didn't die at birth. That I can kind of see the argument on, but I think there's lots of stuff out there we haven't discovered yet.
Raul, tell them about the 747 like pigeon that flew over your house.
Oh, I have 3 acres, and half of it's deep woods. And one day my daughter was like, "I'd like to see where the property goes." So at the back of the property, there's a monster pine tree. And at the top of the tree, you could see this huge nest. I've never seen a nest that big. And then one day I go out my front door, and there's a tree maybe 20 feet, 30 feet from where I'm standing. And on the low branch looks like a person squatting. And I'm trying to figure out who's in my tree in my yard. And at that point, this thing flies at me, comes off the tree, flies at me. I duck behind one vehicle and watch it fly over my 2003 quad cab Dodge. And the wingspan was bumper to bumper as it took off through the property and up and out. And it scared the living daylights out of me. My wife thought I was absolutely nuts. And the biggest bird that I could get close to it was a California condor. And it still wasn't even close, because the wingspan was like 20 feet. So while my wife is mocking me the entire time, about a week later, she's sitting in the living room and she sees the shadow go across the front yard that was monstrous. Unfortunately, 2 months later, we had a hurricane that came through and ripped down the nest. So I don't know where it moved on to. But the nest was gone, and so was the bird. But the wingspan measured out at 20 feet.
So did it have like feathers like a bird, or was it like
Yeah, it looked like a giant eagle.
Oh, cool.
But I've never seen an eagle that big.
Wow. The weirdest thing I ever saw in with my own eyeballs was back in Southern Illinois. It was getting close to evening time, and I was at the neighbor's house, and I went out to go find the neighbor's grandson, which I used to babysit him all the time. He was probably about 8 or 9 at the time, and he was out riding his bike or whatever, and I had to bring him in. So I go out and I see this thing that looks ears like a rabbit. It's sitting there just like a rabbit, which is not abnormal, to see out there in Southern Illinois in the country. And as I'm walking down the road, because it's kind of on the side of the road, I guess you can say, in the grass, and I could see it, and it goes to take off. But when it took off, it ran like a cat and had a long tail. So it was kind of like a hybrid between a rabbit and a cat, like a large cat, because it was pretty large for a rabbit, actually. So that was kind of an odd thing that I've actually seen with my own eyes that didn't make sense as far as animals go. I've seen some weird plants. I've seen a lot of weird plants that I can't explain, which is kind of normal. We find them all over South America all the time. They got people out there making new discoveries. But animals, especially here in North America, it is kind of odd to consider there's some stuff we haven't found. But I believe that there is some stuff out there we haven't found.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, especially in the wilderness, is there interbreeding of, certain types of animals that you wouldn't think would breed? Or, I can't see a lion in a rabbit, but hey, who knows?
Yeah, I've got a golden doodle.
Maybe
right?
it's a feral cat rabbit.
Yeah, right now our new dog is a golden doodle. Okay, a golden retriever and a poodle. That's not natural, but it exists.
But like you said, it's also arrogant to think we found everything out there, and we know everything.
Yeah.
And things evolve too. I mean, and look at insects. I mean, you ever see sometimes you see some pretty freaky insects and you go, what the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a fly, but it kind of has a head like a dragonfly, or just weird shit. It's like, wow.
Well, and if you think about, if you subscribe to the whole Darwinism thing, right? You subscribe to the theory of evolution and everything, then this has to occur. According to mainstream science, it has to occur that there's going to be a change at some point, and that mutation. And that's where I said the argument could be made, whether it's some species that's existed and we've never discovered, if you're into the creation side of things. But if you're into the Darwinism thing and the theory of evolution, then it has to happen. So what's the big deal if we say, hey, we saw something that you've never seen before? Well, maybe it's new. Maybe it's only been around for 20 years. And it's intentionally avoided people. I mean, like the arrogance of humanity. Like I said before, the earth was flat until it was round, then it was round until it was flat, then it was flat till it was round. I mean, we always think that wherever we are today is the end all be all, but that's not the end all be all. It's never is.
The other side of that is panspermia, as they call it. Things coming in from space, on asteroids or meteorites, whatever, that come here, and now, they adapt, which, they take these microscopic bugs up into space and say, wow, we didn't think these would survive. So it's kind of the same thing. Something coming in from space survives, and look at octopus. You can't tell me there's something alien about those freaking things. They're a very bizarre but tasty, that's kind of where I don't think they're actually, if they're aliens, they're not smart, because you can do all this stuff, but yet you can't make yourself taste like something I wouldn't want to eat, like a Impossible Burger. Well, make yourself taste like that, and I ain't gonna sushi you up.
Well, the other thing to that you got to bring up is people themselves, and how much genetic manipulation are we out there doing?
Yep.
I mean, Hitler was trying to do it back in the 40s. So I'm sure we're still doing it and screwing around with genetics. We're just not seeing what the product is.
And here's something to really wrap your head around, and I've thought about this a lot lately. We've been genetically modifying food for a long time now. We have pharmaceuticals and things that are getting to the groundwater. If there was ever a time in the history of this earth that things are going to start mutating and being genetically altered, it would be now because of the food. I mean, think about it. A deer is going out in the cornfield and eating GMO corn. It's out there drinking the water that has pesticides in it from the groundwater. It has pharmaceuticals that were flushed down the freaking toilet. You know, and you could try to purify that water and release it into the wild, but it's still, you can't boil out. You can't get rid of those chemicals. Those chemicals are still there. So God knows what we're doing to these creatures that are just out there trying to live their life, and they could be getting modified, you know, and it's just something to think about.
Well, I mean, look at like the radiation in the water from Fukushima and stuff.
Yeah.
Which mutates Chernobyl, which mutated animals and all that, and people.
I'm thinking about Blinky, the three-eyed fish from The Simpsons, you know?
Oh.
Look at the Connecticut River where we are. I just found out that every time they have massive flooding up in Massachusetts, in the Springfield area, their system dumps anywhere from 5 to 14 million gallons of sewage into the Connecticut River that then is flowing all the way down to the ocean, and it's feeding farmlands, animals, and everything else. So you can't tell me it's not affecting something somewhere down the road.
But the good thing is we got some big ass catfish.
Yeah.
And they are tasty.
You know, you mentioned and this is complete. We didn't talk about this, but I was actually looking at this the other day. You're talking about you know, history and maybe, you know, microbes going into space and coming down. I know there's a current theory out. It's been out for a while now. Ancient Aliens talks about it. That maybe life started on Mars, and of course this plays into the whole green agenda that we, or whoever they were, destroyed Mars because who knows, they got too advanced, they burnt too many fossil fuels, whatever, they ruined their planet. But some of the microbes then, you know, because of a meteor strike, made it over to Earth, and then life began here. And I was thinking about all that, and then thinking about the whole idea of Pangea as well, where we had, you know what Pangea is, right?
Yes.
It's the one, just for those who don't know, Pangea is, and if you look at the continents on the globe, or flat Earth, I don't care what you want to call it, globe, flat Earth, whatever, they kind of puzzle piece together and fit. So the theory there is that something really, really large, like a rogue planet or something huge asteroid or something, smacked the Earth and knocked like a chunk out of it. So we basically were like the half moon with a piece of the Earth missing, and then it kind of like rearranged itself, and then that's where we get the tectonic plates and all that, and that's why it looks like the puzzle pieces of all the continents fit together, and that's how they said that life got on all the continents, because it actually was born in one big continent that then shifted over time. What blows my mind is which side fits together. Because if you look at, like, let's say the Atlantic Ocean, yeah, it looks really nice. All the continents fit together. But then you flip it around, look at the Pacific Ocean, and they all fit together too. So it doesn't work both ways. Do you see what I'm saying? If there was a chunk missing, then it would make sense that they fit together on one side, but the other side would be kind of random. I don't know, just something to wrap your head around. I was actually looking at it the other day. My mind was going on a spacewalk, and it's like, wow, that actually, unless the Earth was smaller and got bigger, that would make sense, because then that would fit together all around, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, it goes to the arrogance of man. But also, I think that, you know, you look at the Egyptian pyramids and all that, and I think we're going through this right now where people say we lost technology.
I believe
You know,
that.
yeah.
believe
I mean,
that.
you look at it now, and everything you do, people are just so dumbed down now. Without your cell phone, you're a zombie, which also goes to another thing with predictive programming, The Walking Dead, which I think it was they're preparing people for COVID, and it's not people being zombies, but it's people being zombies to what they're listening to. But to me, it's so much stuff ties together, and I think if these people are smart enough, people, whatever you want to call them, that are trying to get all this to happen right now for whatever reason that it has to happen by 2030, it's either a real great coincidence that all this stuff is coming together right now, or it's all planned out. But I just think we're losing technology because, like they say, you get everybody in, people that live in cities don't know how to cut wood. They don't know how to do this because they never had to do that. They hire somebody to come in and do that. They don't know how to, take care of animals or whatever. And is that the same thing that happened with the Egyptians? They got to a point to where they lost the technology because there's way more to those pyramids. That's a whole nother realm of things to talk about. But they said they were burial tombs, but they never found anybody buried in them.
Yeah, they're not tombs.
Yeah, and most people think that they're like a power station. And there's pyramids all over the world. Those aren't the only ones.
Oh, and they say the obelisks are, because of the crystalline structure in them and things like that, that was a way to distribute that power.
Yep.
And I know Tesla played around with that before he was gone, Nikola Tesla.
Yep.
And he was actually, the fight between whether we're going to use AC current or DC current was based off of the fact they couldn't meter what Tesla was doing. They couldn't bill you for it. They didn't have an accurate way to bill you. There's also some problems, and I think this, and Aaron also knows this, the transmission over distance, but Tesla is working on a wireless transmission way of doing it.
Man, you're super breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll pause.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Like Tony Raul just went all super glazed on my computer here. It's weird.
Yeah, but it's possible that they had some way of producing some kind of a DC current. There's some pictograms or some hieroglyphics that show what looks to be a light bulb. They found what's called the Baghdad battery, simple copper line clay pot with an electrolyte, and you put another material in there, and you can produce a DC current. They've proved that it works. Now, can you produce how much electricity could you actually produce with it? You can argue that. But obviously they had the knowledge. I think that's what we're talking about, is the lost knowledge. And even if you go back to the biblical times before Noah's flood, those people, they had the knowledge. The demons, according to the Bible, were messing around because they found the earth women fair, the human women fair, and they messed around, and they had giants, and they had some kind of hybrids, I guess you could say, and they would have brought the knowledge of beyond this world in with that. So I believe there is, and we've have archaeological finds of really complex devices that we could barely even make today, even with the finest machining equipment, down to a small scale. Advanced mechanical calculator or calendars and things like that. So I think there was, you can call it an Atlantis or whatever you want to call it, but I think we did have you've heard of the fourth turning, right? Every so many years there's a turning, and there's a fourth turning. Well, maybe there's
years, I believe.
Yeah, maybe there's a 1,000th turning, where after so many iterations of that, then everything's wiped out and it starts over. And the flood that happened in Noah's day could be that turning that happened where all technology was wiped out and it started over. And there's a lot of compelling evidence that says that's a possibility, is all I'm saying.
Well, look at just a simple version of it with Indonesia. With the tsunami, they lost 250,000 people in just a few hours.
Yeah.
So you can actually take out the entire civilization with a large flood and start over.
Or I'm not going to go there.
Or volcanic activity. They found people in pyroclastic flows.
Yep.
Where they're just frozen in time, literally, in entire cities. large scale, like global scale event could do that as well. Where a handful survive and they don't have we're at the point now to where if society goes into the ground and it's just us three that survive, we're going to have to go back to the Stone Ages. And we're going to be so busy surviving that what skills we do know, number one, we don't have the tools to machine something or whatever. We're going to teach our kids how to like chop wood. And so all the knowledge is going to be dumped. Like literally in one generation, they're back to the Stone Ages. And I could see that, maybe that happened at one point.
Well, and that kind of goes to what I always talk about with I don't believe that the people that are the New World Order, the globalists, whatever you want to call it, that these are people that they're not human. There's something going on there because humanity doesn't treat humanity the way that they do. And if you know about the Anunnaki, you know about that with we were slaves to mine gold. And at some point, we started out with the prehistoric man, and then they adapted, changed the DNA to make us what we are. Or the other part that I kind of like to look at is, are we the AI to where, because even they've done it now, self-replicating robots. And I think it was Musk that brought this up. If you send a robot to Mars, you want it to be self-replicating to where it can take the natural resources there and reproduce itself, and then that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. So I mean, you look at us; we're self-replicating basically. We can't build ourselves out of dirt, but mating, and through that, it's. So is that what we are? Were we done that by the Anunnaki, and now, for whatever reason, you take this to the vaccine that they want everybody's inject you with this RNA, which will change your DNA. Is this another? Have we come too far in technology for them that they're saying, you know what, we need to get these people back under control or whatever, for whatever reason they want to do. And now with the aerosol injection, as they call it, the chemtrails, are they trying to make a global, a greenhouse effect to warm the planet for their intentions? And Russian roulette, you get the jab and you die, you're just collateral damage at that point, which, even if these people are human, that's still what's going on there. But it's just, I don't know. I just think there's so much stuff that people just brush off as, that's a legend, that's folklore. A lot of the stuff is written, the Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki and all that, but people just want to say, I don't know, that's not true. Somebody wrote it down. I mean, people believe what's written in the Bible. And I'm not knocking it, I'm just saying. So this is kind of the same thing. This is like somebody wrote this down and kept track of history, just like you do now. Well, and now you just record it, or type it on your computer. But it's the same thing. You're tracking history, which also brings me to my other. I'm sorry, I'm all over the board today, but I'm just so frustrated with everything in the world right now. But the other thing is, like, you go to a funeral now. And like for older people, everybody had photographs. And, you put up a memory board with all the photographs. What's going to happen, like when you and I pass away? Not a lot of photographs because everything's on digital now, in which you can lose in a heartbeat. People, I lost my phone. I had all my pictures on it. Well, why didn't you back them up to something? But it's just, we think we're advancing in technology, but I think we're actually going backwards.
On the photograph thing, I have a lot to say on that. I get on my wife about this all the time. Sometimes less is more. When you got one of those little windable, disposable 35 millimeter cameras you had to take to the 24-hour or the 1-hour photo processing place or whatever, you made every shot count and you printed it and you put it on the wall.
Yep.
Now she's like taking pictures like it's crazy. The kids grab the phone and they're taking stupid pictures of stuff. You end up with 10,000 freaking pictures. And I'm like, when do you ever look at these? They might as well go in the garbage. You might as well never have taken them, because who's going to sit down and go through 10,000 photos to see that one photo you want to see? Yeah, less is definitely more. And technology is, it's kind of like, it's almost like what we do with and the news comes at us with this. There's so much information that you get overwhelmed. And, you can't really get a grasp on what's going on because it's like here, it's like squirrel, 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 to where it becomes overwhelming. You can't see the forest for the trees. And, that kind of plays into that whole technology is kind of killing us. It really is. We're losing who we are as a humanity.
Yep, I agree with that.
Oh, that's like people were laughing at me when I went to go buy a new camera, and I came back with a 1975 Minolta.
Nice.
Because I wanted to have something that didn't run out of battery. So they were expecting some new digital phenomenal thing, and I pulled out a 35 millimeter 1975 Minolta.
Which probably takes better pictures than anything.
But like you said,
Oh, yeah.
I want to make sure every picture counts.
Mm-hmm.
Not just take 25,000 of them.
Oh, yeah. I remember I was actually going to take photography in high school. And I spent a good portion of my summer's earnings from my job to buy a camera. I spent several $100s on this camera. It was a Pentax. It was a K1000 is what it was. And a real nice 35 millimeter, fully manual, everything. That's what they wanted for the class. And then I was shocked when it didn't come with a freaking lens. I'm like, what? So I opened the box. I'm like, where's the damn lens? And so the lens was more than the freaking camera. So I had to work another several months to get the lens. And it wasn't even that good of a lens. But it ended up getting stolen before my class. I had to cancel the class. Somebody broke in the house and took it. They didn't take the lens, though. I'm like, the lens was worth more than the damn camera.
They had the lens. They needed the camera.
And I just figured out how to use the damn thing, and it had a really cool feature. It had an external button that you can push or even set to like stay held open, where you can just open the shutter and leave it open. And you could set the thing inside. I don't know what you call it, but I could actually literally put my camera on a tripod and point it at the sky and then keep it open for like hours. And it would just slowly let the light in. You can get that swirly star thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. It was a nice camera. I mean, really good. You could do a lot more with it than you can with the digital stuff you can nowadays.
Yeah, the problem is everybody's become so reliant on the technology
Mm-hmm.
that they're losing, like even the cars. You've got all the sensors for backing up, for lane changes. Nobody knows how to just drive.
Yeah,
I see it all the time. People backing out of a spot. I used to see it, especially in the Army, when I was still in the Army, and I would be driving through the parking lot at work. There would be these young guys looking down at their dashboard as they're backing out, have no clue because they have no peripheral. They don't have a 360 awareness. They only see what's directly behind them. And they have no idea that somebody's coming up at 15 miles an hour on their phone, going too fast in a parking lot, looking at their phone. And I've seen so many close calls. I've had people almost hit me. It's insane because they're focused on that technology, like you said, instead of looking over your shoulder and checking, what's going on around you. So
that's how I would say, I have a different car every week because I rent a car, and you drive it for a week, and you got, I have the markers for when somebody's on my blind spot, a backup camera. Some of them have the cruise that's adaptive. So I drive that for a week. I get used to it. I get back to the airport, get in my car, which doesn't have any of that stuff, and you start going. I'm not going to look at I always use my mirror anyway, but I could see a lot of people just not doing that. Well, the blind spot monitor's not on, so there must not be anybody there, and just change lanes. It's like, holy crap.
Mossman was talking about that. He said the other day, I think we're on, so you weren't on Saturday, right? On Nights of the Storm, it was just me and Moss. Yeah, he said it's like people went crazy over the weekend. People were cutting each other off, and we actually went out after the show and we looked at crash statistics from 2015 till current, and you would not believe. And we were kind of like trying to link it to the jab that maybe people are passing out at the wheel, and you would not believe it just in 2022. And they don't have 2023 statistics out, which I think they don't want to release them from the CDC because they're probably insane. Now I couldn't make a link to the jab It could just be because people didn't drive for a year, or maybe their cars are more automated, or maybe they're too much into this because of the lockdowns. So they got too into the virtual world. Not really sure what that is, but it's definitely a phenomenon that's happening.
But there was also, this came out, I'll say 6 months ago, that New York Times, somebody put out there that unvaccinated people are the worst drivers. They tend to take more chances. So there you go.
I actually seen an article on that where they wanted to charge more car insurance. Yeah, they wanted to raise your insurance rates if you were unvaccinated. It was an article or something I read on it because they are higher risk takers. Kind of like if you drive a red car, you're a higher risk guy.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy.
What I'm finding out is, people used to complain about you being on your cell phone. That's what's causing the distraction.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we upgraded to a 2015 Acadia, there were so many different things in that car to play with. You didn't need a phone. You had all these gadgets and gizmos and, while you're driving, if you're playing around with the big screen in there to monitor stuff, of course you're not paying attention to the road. I mean, back in the day, we had an AM radio or an FM radio, and you gauges on your car.
Oh, you didn't have to look at it either. You knew where the buttons were without looking.
Yeah.
Now you've got to look at the screen, and it comes with Apple CarPlay, Android Audio, Pandora. Comes with all the apps that are on your phone. So instead of you looking at your phone, you're looking at the screen. So they say don't use your phone, but then they just give you a different, bigger phone.
Yeah, because I use Android Auto all the time for maps when I'm traveling
that is
somewhere.
handy.
But yeah, it's something to come up on the screen, and it's constantly distracting you. You just got a text from your wife. Would you like to listen to it? Yes, I will. Would you like to reply? I'm trying to drive here. What do you want from me?
It's a funny story. It's a funny story, Angus. Somehow, and this is when I changed phones maybe 3-4 years ago. And my phone came with this not this one, but my last phone came with this drive safe thing where if I rolled over like 15-20 mile an hour, it would turn off, my text messages. And it was set up with an auto reply. So my wife goes to text me, and I didn't know it because I didn't receive the text. It went straight to the memory hole, and then it sent her a reply back. And then when I get done driving, I get a text that says, "What the hell does that mean?" And I'm like, "What?" Apparently, I texted her back something about texting and driving is unsafe. One life is too much. Please stop. It's like some kind of automated crap. And I just thought it was funny because it was one of those kind of like a commercial, like what you'd see on TV. And she was like, what the hell are you talking about, man? But I had to turn that stuff off. It was.
Yeah, it's almost more distracting than helpful. And it's true. I try not to ever touch my phone when I'm driving, but I'll be driving through. I'm not going to name the state in case there's a state trooper listening. And but you'd be driving in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody on the road, and I check real quick because I ain't doing nothing. But then all of a sudden, I find myself going, shit, I'm distracted. It only takes it only takes a couple seconds. It's like, you know what? Just leave it over there. Just don't touch it.
Now I do like the Bluetooth. My radio in my truck has a Bluetooth that if somebody calls me, I can just hit a button real quick, and then I can just focus on driving and I can talk. I do like that. So, but that's about it.
But I see people that do that, but they're animated when they talk. So they're driving, having a conversation, hands going, and they're still not paying attention to to driving. They're lost in that conversation. It's like, holy cow.
It wouldn't be so bad if it were just one hand going, but when it's both hands going, there's nothing holding the wheel.
Can you imagine someone from like the 70s or 80s getting on the road today and just seeing the people in other cars? Like they're talking to themselves or wearing a mask, like they would think we're
by themselves. That's always my favorite.
with the windows up, masked up.
Well, even just like I was saying before about, The Walking Dead. I go through the airport pretty much every week, and there's people just staring at that black mirror. Have no clue where they're walking, no clue what's going on around them. We become the ultra me society. It's all about me. I don't give a crap about you. If I walk into you, it's your fault. You should have seen me texting or talking on my phone. It's just amazing what a crappy society we're becoming.
You know what's freaking scary is I actually had to go pick up some medication the other day from the PX, not the PX, the PX pharmacy. So it's on base, and you're familiar. You get the BX or whatever, right? As Navy, but
yep.
You think that the staring into the black mirror is a youthful thing, but I'm sitting here, and the Fort Leonard Wood doesn't have a lot of active duty units here anymore. It's mostly just TRADOC, trainees. And then everyone else that has to come on and get services is retirees. So they're all a lot older than me. So there's maybe like 20, 30 people sitting there in this little area with chairs where we're waiting to get our number called or whatever. And they're all considerably older than me. And literally every single person except one was on this phone. Every single one was glued to that phone. And they didn't even hear their number called the first time. There was one other lady that was, maybe she probably looked like she's about 10 years older than me. And she looked just frustrated because back in the day, we used to like have magazines, in the waiting rooms, and we used to conversate and talk to people and talk about the weather and things like that, talk about the day's events. But no, everyone's got their stuff right here, right now. They're so honed into it. And it's not just the young people anymore. It's also the old people. It's kind of scary.
Yep.
It's bad because every time my wife and I go out to dinner, we'll be sitting there and you watch a family of 4, a family of 5. They're all sitting there at the table, all with their phones. Nobody's talking. It's like, why didn't you just have it delivered to your house? Why are you there if you're not going to actually chat with each other?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's the one thing we don't do in my family. Let's Raul, why don't you tell us about the little bit Raul and I were at a gathering. He's like family to me, so he becomes our family gathering, and he brought up a good point I never thought about in my whole life.
Oh, the Titanic.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my wife was discussing that with the accident that just took place with the deep sea dive group.
Yeah, what was it? Ocean Gate, that company Ocean Gate.
Yes. And they're showing the map of where the Titanic was in relation to the East Coast. And she looked at me and she went, I didn't realize it was almost straight out from Massachusetts. She's like, I always thought it was up north because it hit an iceberg. And I'm like, well, that depends on what you believe. I said, when I was in the Navy, I chased subs and Russian ships from Jacksonville all the way up past England to where they were going home, and then we turned around and back. And this was 83, 84. And no matter how far we went up, we never saw any icebergs. So she's like, but why would it hit something that far south? And it's like, well, that depends. Because if you're a conspiracy person, it could have been taken down by itself. So you've got J.P. Morgan, who's bailing out the U.S., who's trying to push the Federal Reserve, who manages not to get on his own ship, but then 3 of the people that are opposing him get on the ship and never make it. You got to ask yourself, is that just a coincidence?
Well, I just did a quick Google search while you were talking to see when the Titanic sank, and it's not like it sank in December or January. It was actually April 14th, 1912. So April
Right.
is not a time you would expect to see, something to take down the above the size of the Titanic in that area. And I've flown over that area on 2 deployments. We flew over the North Atlantic, and I've seen the icebergs down there. I know they exist, but yeah, that far south, it is kind of questionable. I've never really thought about that. Angus brought it up. I think he said that you had mentioned something about it, and that made me think too. And that these big liners back then, some of them actually were hauling munitions before we were involved in certain wars. They admit that they were hauling munitions and they were under the guise of a cruise ship, but that's how we were indirectly supporting other wars that we weren't involved in at the time. So it makes me wonder if if you think that way, if you think that maybe it wasn't an iceberg, what was the thing? Maybe they were hauling munitions. Maybe it was a submarine. Who knows?
Well, I heard one today that supposedly the coal bins that were on that ship were 3 stories tall.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly JP Morgan knew that there was a fire in the coal bin. And they couldn't put it out, so they decided to try to shovel it into the engines as fast as possible to try to kill it that way. That's why he didn't get on the ship, because he knew there was already a fire going below deck and didn't want to be involved in it.
Interesting.
Which we were discussing that before, and I was like, when you think about it, so now coal doesn't go out, so now you're shoveling. So now if they bring that level down, we'll say 1 story, now you have more air in there, plus you're disturbing the coal, and now there's coal dust in the air and all that, and it's force feeding it. It's making it even bigger. So if it superheats the side of the ship that it's up against, my question is, what would it actually do with cold water on the outside? So say the water's like 40 degrees. Now the inside of that steel plate, I'm going to have to assume that's probably 6-inch plate or something, at least 4. But I mean, so if it superheats for that, how long were they on the ocean? For a day or 2? But so if that's burning and it's actually superheating that, what's the outcome when that is up against cold water? Like a windshield in your car, if you throw hot water on it.
Yeah.
Or actually, I did it last winter with mine, turning the defroster on and having snow. I hadn't cleared it off yet, and the defroster got hot enough, and with the snow on the other side, it cracked the windshield. Yep. So you got that difference in temperature, and so it's could that. I should know a little bit about that, being in the metal industry.
So are you saying that the metal may have cracked and caused a breach? Yeah. Okay. And that's possible. I mean, you could do that with any material. You heat it, you get it cold. The rapid expansion contraction, it's going to give way.
And if you hit an off wave causing extra stress, you can get it to pop.
But see, we were talking about it earlier that there's so many coincidences in life. So it's a coincidence that he didn't have Chase didn't get on the boat, but because supposedly he wasn't feeling it, or was it Chase or JP Morgan? JP Morgan. So he doesn't get on the boat because he's not feeling good. Well, he also financed the boat, so wouldn't you take pride to say, I got the biggest stateroom on this thing. I'm going no matter what the maiden voyage. I can be sick in my stateroom. I want everybody to see my stateroom. And I'm just going to, I'll wait for the next one. You people go.
Yeah. I mean, how many coincidences happened on 9/11? People didn't go to work. I actually have a friend of mine that he got stationed in the Pentagon, and he worked there on the side that the Pentagon got hit, and he didn't go to work. He didn't go to work because he was late. He was late to wherever they met up for PT that morning. And he got a call from his boss saying, hey, meet me at such and such, I don't know, donut shop or coffee shop or whatever. I'm going to give you a written counseling for missing PT. And rather than go to work and do that, he had called him out to some other location to do that. And that's when the Pentagon got hit. So a lot of stories like that. And then you look at the financing and the money the insurance policies taken out on the World Trade Center complex and all this other stuff, 3 buildings going down with 2 planes. How many people didn't show up to work? The building was closed down. They had people in overalls in there with
25,000 people or something.
Yeah,
but
it's crazy.
A lot of people didn't come in that day, so that's
for varying reasons. For many varying reasons. That, like I said, the coincidences are just way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But even that, and that's something I always like to think about is 9/11. So it happens the day that they pick, or the day that it happened is 9/11, which is emergency, which the coincidence also being that they had drills going on at the same time about aircraft getting hijacked and stuff like this. And so it delayed their response because they said supposedly there's an FAA recording with the guy from the FAA questioning, is this part of the drill? So their response is already delayed as far as, getting fighters or whatever they're going to do to stop this. And then you find out that the bombings in England on 9/11, the same thing. They were
similar stuff happened before Pearl Harbor. Very similar stuff happened. So it's rinse and repeat. They may change the game plan a little bit, but I think I don't know that our own people would wage an attack on us like a straight up false flag. But I could see some people allowing something to happen that they maybe had foreknowledge of and say, well, just turn your head this way and don't look and let it happen. Just let it happen so we can get into this next war. That I could definitely see. And I've seen documentation on it. Operation Northwoods is a good one. Yep.
Well, it's like Angus and I were talking, Pearl Harbor. It's amazing how 4 carrier groups, all brand new ships, are all north, and the only thing left in Pearl Harbor are a bunch of relics that nobody cared about. But all your brand new ships, all 4 carriers, were all going north, 1,000 miles out. Kind of coincidental.
That's kind of a big trip to take too. You guys were both Navy, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
For like a sea trial type thing or whatever, when you have a new ship, do you really take them out that far, or do you just kind of like stay local for a while?
Yeah, because you're still you don't want to be too far out if something happens.
Yeah, I would think that. That's why I'm asking you.
AAA don't come out that far sometimes. Our ship only had 100. Well, actually, yeah, because we hit a freighter off Cuba. Our ship did, and we had to steam back at 6 knots. So AAA wouldn't know it was too far to go back to Norfolk.
Yeah, I've been watching the Star Trek Enterprise series, which way underrated. I don't know why. I think I talked to Guard about why that didn't go. It's because they changed the time slot or something. And but they were the first Warp 5 engine in the the series or whatever, in the whole, what do you call it? I forget what they call that. For the whole bunch of different shows they ran. Yeah. And they were the first Warp 5, but it took them a long time, a lot of episodes, and up until like the 2nd season or something before they finally pushed it to Warp 5. Because
is that the one on Paramount?
It's the one, the guy who plays in Quantum Leap. I don't know his name offhand. He's the Quantum Leap guy.
Okay.
And his Captain Archer's his character name. But it's the first of all the Enterprise spaceships. It was kind of a prequel, I guess you could say. But it's a pretty good. I mean, it gets a little woke towards the end, but it was a later series that came out that wasn't too terribly woke, so I kind of like it. But yeah, back to what I was saying though, because that whole Star Trek model is modeled off the Navy, with the names of the ships and their terminology and stuff like that. It's all Navy based. And they didn't go, oh, we have a Warp 5 engine, let's just go Warp 5 and let's go. No, they started off small. They did a short trip. They ran the engines easy. They worked out little kinks and bugs, and they pushed it a little at a time. So when you say they were 1,000 miles north in pretty much a new fleet, that kind of like strikes me as, would you really do that? Would you throw all your eggs in one basket like that?
And it's not, of course, back then diesel fuel was a lot cheaper, but it still is not cheap to send 4 battle groups that far out for a test drive, that's a lot of fuel. I was on a diesel carrier, and we took on 1 million gallons every other day of diesel.
Holy cow!
Every other day. So you put 4 of them out there.
But that's why you got to give up your Mustang or your Mercury, your Cougar.
Yes. No. But yeah, it's amazing. It's so everything's a coincidence.
The sad part is, you talk to random people who just don't want to have a clue. They're happy in their ignorance. They don't want to know what happened, back with the pyramids. They don't want to know what's going on now. They've got their cell phones, their job, and they just want to go home.
They want to feed their family and they want to be entertained because their life sucks. And their life sucks because it's been designed to suck by our freaking government. It's been designed to suck ever since they implemented the income tax. They destroyed the family. They took the money out of the metals out of the money, created inflation. So my 50 hours of work last year is only worth 30 hours this year. So I can't store any wealth to eventually retire and take it easy. I have to pray to God I can live until Social Security age, and hopefully it's still there. People want to release, and now they're pushing drugs. They're pushing drugs. Oh, just take these drugs and be happy with that. So people don't want to know. They want to be dumb on purpose. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna bow out for a second. Tiger's calling me, man.
All right,
Let me
go
pause
ahead.
it for a second.
Yep.
What's up, brother?
There it is.
Man, just look at all the drugs they push.
Well, it's now in a lot of the states I go through where it's legal. There's dispensaries on every freaking corner. Yeah, that's all they want to do is dumb people down even more. I mean, I have no problem with people smoking pot, but with the government pushing it,
right.
There's a reason.
Yeah, there's quality medical reasons for it. People coming to the end.
Yes.
But when every other commercial you see is drug related, I mean, when I went to go get life insurance, I had to, I had it for like 15 years, 15 or 20 years, and the policy ended. So I had to go back for re-up it again. And I'm sitting in there, and the lady's like, okay, we need a list of your medications. I don't have any. Really? I'm going to take some vitamins. We don't need vitamins. You're not on any prescription medication. No.
Yeah, they assume, and they want everybody on prescription.
Something.
It was the same when my mom, who was 78 when she got sick, and when the first time she went there, that was the exact same question they asked her. What medication she wants? She goes, I'm not on any. Well, you're 78 years old. You should be on something. She says, no. It's like, is that a requirement now? Do I have to be on something so that you'll treat me for being sick because the freaking drugs that you're giving me are making me sick?
Oh, look at the crap Debbie goes through with the meds. I mean, if she takes them wrong, she figured out she was taking something wrong, and she was falling asleep for 4 hours in the morning. I mean, I found out the hard way. The doctor gave me a list of vitamins and minerals to take for COVID. One of them was zinc, one of them was iron.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my zinc ran out, and I went and bought it, but what I bought was iron. Well, I'm not paying attention because they're two different. One was a capsule for iron, and the other iron was like the zinc, little pill. So I'm taking it. All of a sudden, my shoulders are killing me. My hips are killing me. I couldn't step over the dog in the living room. I had to walk around. I was in so much pain. Why am I in so much pain? I just thought it was, 50 years of being a rented mule. It finally caught up. So I ran out of the zinc, put the bottle on the safe, and was like, I got to go get it. A week or two goes by. I still haven't gotten it. I'm feeling better. I was like, I'm just going to take the bottle, put it in the truck. So So remember it. Grab the bottle. It says iron. Whoa. Yeah, I just took iron this morning. Go back in the thing. Yeah, iron. Different bottle. Iron. Google it. Side effects.
Too much iron.
Massive joint pain. Bingo!
It doesn't turn you into Iron Man if that's what you're going for.
Popeye ate the spinach. It was the iron in the spinach. I mean, I haven't taken the iron in a couple of weeks, but I still have some effects from it. But I figured it's gonna take a long time to get out of my system if I was doubling up on it. So what the hell are they putting in with all these other? But I like the now one. Now every commercial you see for the drugs, most people lose 15 pounds.
Yeah,
There's always a weight loss to it.
Yeah, because when you die, you lose weight pretty freaking quick. Or when they have to take your colon or something. Son of a bitch, I lost 20 pounds today. Took my lower intestine. Awesome. Well, I was talking to somebody about that today. I said, we buy bagels for the house. So you go to a store, you go to a bagel place between the rounds, H&H Bagel, whatever. They keep them the next day. They throw them out because they're hard. But yet the ones you buy at the grocery store
stay soft
for
forever.
months. Yeah, months.
Ever.
So what the hell are they putting in there that I'm eating?
Right, but the fresh baked stuff that you buy goes moldy in a couple of days. But yeah, you go to Stop and Shop, you pull the bread off, whatever they're doing.
It's amazing. So it's like, so you wonder what makes you sick, why you have to be on all these medications. And that's what they say too, is because the GMOs in the food, what they're actually, people's bodies can't consume it. So all these new drugs that they're coming out with for upset stomachs and this and that is to make your body adapt to eat these GMOs. And again, some people go, oh, it's freaking crazy talking. Yeah, all right, whatever you want to believe.
And then you look at it too, if you want to go that route. They're willing. It's like in a battle. You're already accepting that there's 25% casualties. You're just cannon fodder. The first group out is automatically dead. Now, what if they're doing that with COVID and everything else?
Oh yeah.
They're weeding out the weak and go, okay, Ed survived, so that's a good thing. Tony survived, that's a good thing. We need to check what else we can, push on them and find out the next grade that survives, the next round.
It's Russian roulette, but they're putting 5 bullets in the chambers.
Right.
Hey, I apologize about that, gentlemen. I'm angry.
No
wanted to talk about the show tomorrow. It's going to be a Billy Buster of a bang up, as he would say.
Billy Buster of a bang up.
Yeah. So what are we talking about? I'm sorry I missed out.
No, we were just discussing, bagels. So you get a bagel.
Bagels.
You buy a fresh bagel. You go to a bakery, a bagel place, H&H Bagels or Panera Bread or something. That bagel, one day they throw it away because it gets hard. But you go to the grocery store and you buy bagels, they'll last for a month. So what is going into the bagels that we are consuming? And so what does your body do? And we got off, because you look at all these prescription commercials now, and they're all about how to make your stomach better, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of that too, they're doing that because the GMOs in the food, they are trying to get your body to accept it. So, they're telling you this is, GMOs, we're doing this, so it's sustainable, but take these drugs. So they're doubling down. The food is cheaper for them to make with the GMOs, but they're also double dipping by now selling you the prescription drugs for your body to accept it. Now you get on that prescription drug and that causes something else. Well, now you need to take this to prevent that. So we were kind of just talking about that kind of tangent, and it's because he was saying that he went to the hospital or the doctor one day and they couldn't believe he wasn't on any prescriptions. And my mother, when she got sick at 78, she wasn't on any, and the doctors were like, "What do you mean? You're 78 years old. You have to be on something." She's like, "I'm not on anything." Is that a law now that you have to be on prescriptions at a certain age? They'll probably do that, Then I guess they have the COVID. Keep coming to get boosters.
Yeah, they're still. I saw a commercial yesterday. They're still pushing to get vaccinated to save yourself and save your loved ones from catching it and spreading it.
And we
Well,
know that's
yeah.
not true. We know
Yeah,
100%
I know,
that's not true.
but unfortunately, there's still people that think it's true. I might have told you. One of my colleagues from Canada was down in January for our sales meeting, and North Cuba they're the younger generation's a little bit left. I'll just put it that way, and they eat up this propaganda. So he's telling me, he goes, yeah, he says I was scheduled to get my 5th booster, but I had COVID that week. I just wanted to punch him. Like, listen to yourself. I'm on my 5th booster now, but I got COVID, so I can't go get it yet.
Do you remember? We're all not that far apart in age. When I was a kid, yeah. When I was a kid, you'd have that 1 or 2 people in school, and I'm talking about junior high, high school era, and nobody was on any kind of prescription for anything. Nobody. But you had the 1 or 2, and it was very discreet. The parents had to like bring the medication like for the month or for the week or whatever to the school with a handwritten permission thing to allow the nurse to administer it, and the kid would have to be excused for some unknown reason to go to the nurse's office to go get that dose, right? But now it's like everybody's on something. All 3 of my kids were on stuff in junior high. They were on all kinds of medications, and then like you said, you put them on one, and then it has a side effect, so we need to give them this as well, and that has a side effect, and it's like a train. I call it the medication train. And my stepson literally had, it looked like 100-year-old lady's freaking Sunday through Saturday pill box that had like 5 of each, because you had your one in the morning, your one in the late morning, the one at noon, the one in the afternoon, and the one you got to take before you go to bed. That's how bad it was. I'm like, what are we doing to these kids? That's why when we talk about SSRIs, I get kind of like, it's like a personal thing to me because I've seen it. And these are my stepkids. So they were on these drugs before, I got to parent them. And it was a real battle to get them off of it. They would freak out. I've been through, to hell and back with them just going crazy because they either forget to take it or we try to dose them down, get them changed to something else. And it's just, and still, I think one of them, they're all old now, so they're all out of the house except for one. But I think one's off completely, but the other 2 are still on at least some of those SSRIs. And when they don't take them, they freak out. It's crazy.
So
Mind control.
Just look at half the people I know, their families have so many food allergies. It's absolutely crazy. How can you have, 3/4 of your family, you can't eat gluten, you can't eat peanut butter, you can't eat seafood, you can't. Where are you coming up with all these allergies for all these families? I mean, now if you bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich into school, you get tased and thrown out.
It's like anthrax, is that peanut butter?
It is. It's scary. It's
my son back in the day brought a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to school, and we were immediately called and had to remove the sandwich. Are you kidding me?
Did they have like a team of people in hazmat suits like the scene on ET where they tent everything off and they got the gloves on? It's peanut butter.
And then they put it in the bomb disposal thing so nobody touches it. We're going to take it out to the field and blow it up.
What have we become? I
have no idea. I just, and then there's soy and everything. About the soy thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you wonder why people they're using it to not manipulate. What's the word I'm looking? I don't know. Just to
demasculate.
Yes.
And I've read conflicting stories on that. I actually went back and forth with somebody on Twitter about the so-called soy boys that eat a lot of vegetarians, so they get their protein through soy and stuff. And soy has an extremely high amount of estrogen. And they were trying to argue, and they referred me to a couple articles, and being diligent, I went and read the articles, and the articles actually said, yeah, it increases this estrogen level, which actually gives masculine, or what's the testosterone effects. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, but it was from a science, you got to believe the science, right?
It was from the Soy Council.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, that's what you and I always say, it's number manipulation is how they do stuff, just make this sound better by using this number instead of that one. But, and then it's all propaganda. Again, it's, so I remember the pork council. Oh, you better eat pork or you're going to die, and then they tell you, too much pork is not good for you.
Eggs are bad. Eggs are good. Eggs are bad.
But, the eggs are good thing.
Coffee too. Coffee.
Yeah, coffee.
But, and if you look at the evidence, because I see it in the grocery stores when I work, and you run around and you look at the kids under 18 and how many of them, male, actually should be wearing a bra because their boobs are that big. It's like, I don't recall that growing up.
Oh, yeah, we used to talk about you in the locker room.
So all you got to do is go look at an old Chuck Norris film or Bruce Lee film when they would be shirtless and, these guys were scrawny. They were very cut, but they were very scrawny. They didn't have the big man boobs or the big, biceps and stuff like that. But they were probably a hell of a lot stronger than what you see now. And these people weigh twice as much as those people. So I don't know if
I mean,
we're growing bigger.
Yeah, they're not going to have the endurance.
No,
somebody built like a Chuck Norris or a Bruce Lee would. I mean, but that's the other thing it grows into. And I think about this all the time. They say people come to this country and they say, no wonder you Americans are so fat when they look at the food. And we're told our food is the best. We're Americans. We're top of the world, and we eat nothing but the best, which is bullshit. Because they're feeding you crap. And a certain person I know works for Coca-Cola, and I asked this person one day, so why do they use corn syrup? Because that's not really good for you instead of sugar, like Mexican Coca-Cola. It's basically so they can produce more faster, is what it comes down to. They don't give a shit what it does to you. They could care less. We made there's one. My mind is running astray today. The guy that invented the K-cups. Now that he's made several billion, trillions of dollars, he regrets ever having invented it because they're filling up the landfill. Oh, come on now. Yeah, I bet you feel real bad.
That's another thing too, is packaging. If you look at the sodas down in Mexico, they come in glass bottles.
Yeah,
we put our sodas in aluminum cans, and a lot of people don't know this, but aluminum cans actually have a layer of plastic on the inside.
Coating.
Yeah, the coating, and that acidity of the stuff has got to eat away at those PLAs, and PLAs are not good. They're actually attributed to giving women problems with birth defects and sterility, having problems and cancers and things like that. More affects women than it does men. I only know this because we had that issue down in Colorado when they had that PLA stuff in the foam that they used on the runway of Peterson Air Base, to put out fires and stuff. And they had this big pond or whatever. They had this foam stuff, this fire retardant, and it just disappeared. It disappeared, and they didn't know where it went. So they assumed it went into the groundwater. And, they were giving out free cases of water throughout Widefield area, not Colorado, not all of Colorado Springs, but like the Fountain, Widefield area. They were giving free water away because they're like, don't drink the water. Eventually they said, oh, it just evaporated. That was their excuse.
Yeah.
But there was a real concern, and there was a lot of news coverage on how the PLAs are really, really bad, especially in women of childbearing age. Yet that is exactly what's on the inside of our soda cans. You know, beer cans, soda cans, any kind of aluminum can.
And it actually will eat through the can at a slow enough rate to where it'll drip, it'll evaporate. It won't just flood out. It'll create hundreds of tiny pinholes, and the can will be empty over time.
Wow, that's interesting. I should get a can of soda and just set it out to do that. I did know a guy that worked for Vess Cola, which is one of your generic brands, and he wouldn't drink soda. He was a friend of my dad's, actually, and I asked him, I said, why not? And he said, do you realize what soda is? You know, soda pop or Coke or whatever you want to call it, you know, depending on what region you're from. But he was saying that they take whatever the actual syrup is that they use to make the soda will kill you. It is that toxic. And they mix that like 1 to 100 parts water. Then they mix that concoction with 1 to another 100 parts water. And they mix that with 1 to 1,000 parts, you know, soda water. It's crazy how strong that stuff actually is. Like you could probably throw, you know, I could probably throw my silver $50 in there and it would probably eat it in a week. You know, that's how nasty that stuff is.
I get to show my daughter how to take rust off her bumper with a can of Coke and some tinfoil.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually watched a guy, I was probably about in freshman or sophomore, and they pulled apart a lawnmower, and the engine was seized up. They literally took a block of wood, put it on the piston, and hammered it with like an 8-pound sledge, and the piston wouldn't move. So they took a 2-liter of Coke, poured it in there, let it sit for a couple days, and then a couple days later, they just went and barely knocked it with a regular hammer, and it fell right out. The whole piston with the rings and everything fell out. It ate all that carbon and stuff off. Kind of crazy that we put that in our bodies.
Yeah, so it's like eating or drinking acid, basically.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's got to be eating the plastic lining on the inside of the cans, which is probably why Mexico uses glass bottles, you know, instead of aluminum cans.
And it tastes better in Mexico, I can tell you that, too. Out of the glass bottle. And, you know, I remember being a kid, and that's what Coca-Cola had was the glass bottles.
Maybe it still has Coke in it. Maybe it still has cocaine in it.
Yeah, well, that was the really good stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it always tasted so much better. And now it's kind of like, aside from the fact that they use corn syrup instead of sugar, but also it was probably cleaner because it wasn't eating through a plastic lining or, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not to mention, if it ate away at the aluminum, ingesting aluminum is not good for you either.
No, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't use deodorant, unfortunately, because it has the aluminum.
But you can get it aluminum free, which is what I do. Yeah. But you know, I try to do fluoride free toothpaste because that's, you know, it's the stuff that they use in there. And being that my background is aluminum foundries, they cannot dispose of that stuff in the landfill. It draws. It has to be bagged and hauled out. But if you throw it in toothpaste or somebody's drinking water, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be good for you.
Did they used to line you up in front of the classroom and then bring a nurse in with the little shot glasses of the fluoride, and you we're already screwed, man, because I used to drink that crap. They'd say, don't swallow it. It tasted good, so I used to swallow it.
Sorry.
That explains a lot, don't it?
That was only because they were recycling it. They wanted to use it for the next person. That's why they didn't want you to.
Oh, man.
Well, that's like in the Navy when I got to the ship and they had stuff called bug juice. It was supposedly Kool-Aid. And I'm sitting there eating lunch one day, and here comes a boiler tech with a 5-gallon pail, and he's filling it up. It's like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, we use this to clean the deck plates down below. It's like, what's in the Kool-Aid that you're cleaning deck plates with it? Yeah, no, I'll stick to some milk or water.
But you know what Prozac is made out of? Prozac is 93% fluoride.
Oh,
and
wow.
you can look that up. It messes with your mind. And that You can look it up online. It's 93 or 94% of fluoride. But yeah, it's good for you, so don't worry about it.
Everything's
Crazy.
good.
But
Well, I know they don't use that stuff in Europe, the fluoride, and you can tell. I mean, their teeth are all messed up. So I think there is some benefits maybe to the teeth, but we got to have something better than something messes with your mind, right?
Well, that's the other, with the aerosol injections, supposedly they're using aluminum particles. And they also say that's why the cases of Alzheimer's is like skyrocketed. And even in Europe, because it's getting the aluminizes, the particles are getting into the soil, which gets into the food chain, and then you ingest it and it gets past your blood-brain barrier. And that's when everything starts to deteriorate at that point.
Yeah, I've actually watched a lot of little kind of like unofficial documentaries on that, chemtrail stuff. And it's not just aluminum; it's a lot of heavy metals. And they've actually went out and found these areas, and it's mostly in I guess more out west, like down around Arizona, New Mexico area, where they did this testing. And there's and the trees don't like to grow out there anyway. But there are places they did grow, and all of a sudden they're just dying for no reason. So they go and test the soil, and they're finding all these heavy metals that don't exist naturally around there. And they can only attribute it. And these are places where the people have been watching the trails or whatever you want to call them up in the sky. And so I guess we need to do an episode on that on Nights of the Storm, or even here if you want to do it.
I was telling Raul before, I'm trying to reach out. I don't know if you ever. I always mention Matt Landman. He made the movie Frankenskies, and that's what he talks. Chemtrails is one of his biggest things. He's an activist, and I wanted to get him on just to have just get a little discussion about it, find out more information. But if you've never seen that movie Frankenskies, you can get it on YouTube. And
I think I queued it up one day, and I just never got to watch it.
It's very interesting because it doesn't it's not just about that, but it goes into weather manipulation, and they've been doing this since like the 20s.
Well, one thing that interested me was that I've been talking to Handy, Handy from I don't think I could say where he's from, but he's from Georgia area, and then Rhonda Tate also from Georgia, and they both were talking about growing. And I know in Rhonda's area, and she shared pictures, they're heavily putting those chemtrails. Now, I didn't live that geographically far from her. So if it was something that was a natural phenomena because of the air pressure and things like that, you would assume I would see it, being only maybe 150, 200 miles as a crow flies from her at the same altitude. Didn't have that in my area. But she was having a really hard time getting her food to grow. And I heard a couple of interesting theories people kind of tossed my way and said that it's potentially, and this kind of falls in line with why Bill Gates is the largest farm owner in America now, farmland owner. If they can poison the land to where you can't grow an heirloom seed, that all that grows is their patented GMO seeds, that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And the fact that they only do it in certain areas get heavily sprayed, and other areas don't see it at all, which that kind of gives a plausible deniability, because now people are like, oh, well, you're talking about this crazy stuff, but I don't see it. I don't see it in my sky. Well, maybe you're not living in the test area. Maybe you're the control. So you'd have to do that. So you'd have to have, for an experiment, you'd have to have some kind of control where you don't allow that to happen. So I don't know. That's something that I'd like to look into, maybe do a show on.
Well, I've told both of you, and I called. I think it was one of the nights we were doing Foxhole, and we were talking beforehand, and I was driving through Tennessee, and the sky was gray, and it wasn't cloudy, but it was not blue, and it just made me question that. But I know Raul. I've told him that before around here. I said, if you actually look at the sky on a sunny day, clear day, it's not as blue as it used to be. And people say, well, that's just you're just thinking different. No, if you can find old pictures that aren't faded, you'll see it in the pictures. But if I look through my sunglasses and I look at the sky, it's this real nice blue, and that's the way I remember it when I was young. and now it's just like a grayish light, more lighter blue. It's weird. You know, so they do it slowly. You just adapt to it, and you just kind of go, "Oh, it's always been like that."
Yeah, true.
That's like you talking about the plants. They've already started doing it with the chickens because everybody's doing their own chickens to get their own eggs,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden everybody's screaming that my chickens aren't laying eggs, and they find out that the feed that they're being given is doing something to the chickens. So people have had to switch to a more natural thing or some other brand, but the major brand everybody was using, their chickens were no longer producing eggs.
Oh, 100%. And our friend Handy actually experimented with that, and he has quail. Quail live a shorter life, and it's kind of a faster way, kind of like why we experiment on mice, because they have a fast metabolism, a fast changeover rate. He actually had some pretty interesting results, and I'm trying to get Handy back on, but he still has no internet right now. So hopefully we get him back on for an update on that. And it, from what I've seen from the people that I know that have played with this and did the feed thing themselves and talked to the people at the feed store, it 100% it was the food. It just he thinks that his birds took a little bit longer to recover because they were so young when they started getting fed it, that it maybe did more damage to them. But eventually they recovered. I think he had to kill one of them. He had to cull one, but the rest did recover and laid eggs. So that's good.
Last week when I was in Texas, my car broke down, and I was kind of in the middle of nowhere by a bunch of farms, and I got a ride with this farmer, and we're driving down the road, and he's doing like 20. He's going to bring me to the gas station, and I look out the window, and there was this chicken running alongside the truck. I said, "Son of a bitch, look at that! That chicken keep up with the truck." He goes, "That's nothing. Watch this." And he got up to like 45, and the chicken was still there. And he told me he raises those chickens. He says they have 3 legs. Because, you know, at dinner, sometimes there's 3 people that want a leg. So he started making them with 3 legs. I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "What does one taste like?" He goes, "I don't know. I never caught one." But yeah, I just want to end the night on a little dad joke, as certain people like to call it. I don't know if that's actually a dad joke, but any other stuff to talk about before we wrap it up?
Yeah. At some point, I would like to discuss in another show, the movement of the sun.
Yeah, go ahead, fire it up. You in a hurry, Jason?
Oh no, I'm good.
I just had to cook him dinner in a little bit, so
Yeah, it's nobody seems to be talking about it. We're talking about climate change and everything else, but it didn't come to my attention. I bought my house in '97, and the sun used to come right up through the front window, back down through the kitchen window, straight over the house in the summertime. So it was so bad you couldn't watch TV in the living room until after 12. And then you couldn't eat dinner without major blinds blocking the sun. And then in 2021, my daughter's eating dinner with us, and she looked at me and she went, "Dad, can you close the door? The sun's in my eyes." And sitting at the center of the table where my daughter was, the sun wasn't even in the window. It had moved 25 to 30 degrees. So I was paying attention to the fact that it was no longer coming up straight east and west. It was more southeast going over. So it's like we've moved, but like I said, after, what is it, 14 years or 20 years, you don't pay attention to the sun moving until one day somebody brings it up and you're like, wow, that's not where it's supposed to be. But if it's moved that far, the weather has to be going crazy along with it.
yeah.
Well, it's common knowledge amongst astronomers and scientists that the Earth as it rotates around the sun, it has a wobble. So it's not a perfect circle that it constantly goes around in the same place every time. It's kind of an off-centered circle, and then that also wobbles. So it makes sense that over several years the slight positioning would be different, and it also makes sense that the climate would change because our distance is different, and the sun has stuff that's happening constantly. You have solar minimums, solar maximums, things like that. I mean, we have a whole bunch of crap pointed at the sun looking for flares and stuff because we need to know if we need to turn the satellites because they'll get knocked out if they have a flare and there's a nice was it EMP or whatever that comes out from it, right?
Yeah.
They have to shield those satellites, otherwise they lose their $1 billion investment. So this is not something we don't know about already. It's just they don't want to tell you about it because they want to sell the narrative that we're doing something to cause problems. This is something that's natural,
It's not
and you just observed it from your kitchen table. What scientists, observe.
I figured out roughly it was a 35 to 40 degree shift.
That's pretty significant, actually.
That's a big difference.
It's only because he lives in an RV.
Yeah. Well, there's also the theory, and this is actually shown in the ice core samples, that occasionally, and I've always wondered this, but is every 32,000 or 42,000 years or something like that, according to historians, that our poles flip north and south, and we do know that it has shifted. It has shifted to a certain degree over the past 50 years or whatever. I mean, it may get to a breaking point where just like a magnet pops over, and would that affect the actual tilt of the Earth as well? And that would change the position of the sun.
I'm sure it would.
Yep.
But yeah, I hear that now too, that they're saying there's people that hear these noises and it sounds like a jet, but there's no jets around and it's very loud. And some scientists say that's actually the magnetic fields changing. You're hearing the sound of them rubbing, so to speak, against each other. And everybody just, like I always said, they like to poo-poo stuff like that. Oh, that's crazy talk. And you take it for granted you live on this planet, and this is the way it always will be, and this is the way this planet's been here longer than us, and it's gone through all kinds of changes. Like, the ice age we've been warming ever since then. So again, maybe that's why there's no icebergs around Nova Scotia anymore, because they melt now. The water's warmer. But it's just you can't take your life for granted, and that everything on this earth, that nothing changes on the earth. Like you said, we are not causing the changes. The earth is changing.
And there's people out there that will monopolize on that to steal from you.
Yeah, they're gonna make freaking money.
Yep.
Look at all the people, Al Gore and Obama and these people that, Al Gore, what was it, in 2004, Manhattan would be underwater.
Well,
and where are they buying their vacation homes?
On properties.
And then you go through and they're telling you need to drive a Prius. Well, they fly in their jets, have their 5 mansions, and drive around in their SUVs.
Oh, and you know what? They'll fly around on their private plane to their oceanfront property that it's worth, $20 million, and there's not a single solar panel on the roof.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just saying. Hypocrites.
Absolutely. And that's, it's somebody, I watch a lot of Jimmy Dore. I don't know if you watch him.
I like him. Yeah. I don't watch him much because I just don't have time, but I do like him when I can squeeze him in.
That's what I like, though. A lot of his episodes are very quick, 5-6 minutes or something like that. But that's what I made some comment. I don't remember what the episode was about, but all these people that are telling you that, oh man, you people are killing stuff, you're gonna have to eat bugs, blah blah blah, and this and that. But yet they're all gonna have the power, their energy. They're all gonna be eating steak. They don't give a crap. They're just gonna tell you what, if there was one steak left on Earth, I guarantee ain't neither of us getting it.
I was watching Fox News the other day. I just turned it on for a few minutes, and I'll turn on the mainstream just to see what they're talking about. And there was a fluff piece going on where one of the pretty Fox ladies, unlike the the CNN where they make him look as ugly as possible and as butch as possible. They actually make him look pretty on Fox. But she's in this stadium, like a baseball stadium, interviewing whoever from whatever team. And they were talking about one of the snacks they have was these roasted grasshoppers.
Oh,
And you could tell this lady had no clue she was going to have to eat a grasshopper live on air. But she was given a grasshopper, and the look on her face when she ate it. And I'm thinking to myself, 20 years ago, somebody just would have threw the mic down and said, I quit. You know, and even the people like, because Brian Kilmeade and some other people were in the, in the studio, hosting the interview with the person that was remote or whatever. They were even like, I wouldn't have done that.
Where was the stadium at? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know, Florida or something.
Yeah, I wonder if it's in a highly Hispanic area, because in Mexico, I had crickets, and they eat them like they're a bag of chips, baby. And
Really?
Yeah, I had one because it tasted. It was fried, and no.
But isn't that whatever's in their shell, the chitin or whatever it's called? Isn't that like not good for you?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's something in the shell, the exoskeleton, of those. Yeah, that I've heard is not good for you.
It's like I knew the guy I was with. I've known him for years, and we had gone up to the pyramid in Cholula, and we were coming down, and I see this guy setting up these bins, and I'm like, I know what that is, just by looking at the bins. And my buddy's like, oh, and they have like your sour cream and onion, your barbecue sauce, and all these different flavors, and he's loading up a bag of them. And we get in the car, and he's like, come, try some. So I tried one, and like I said, because I don't know what flavor he got, Cheeto or something like that, but the initial flavor wasn't bad, but the aftertaste, that's got to take some getting used to. But so I'm wondering if that, maybe it was, I was thinking maybe it was a stadium in Mexico, but maybe in a place where that the population's higher. Because I don't see me going to Fenway Park and go give me a bag of.
I don't remember where it was. I know their mascot was a moose, and Kilmeade was like, "Why a moose? You would think it would be like a sea creature." So I think it was Florida or something. I don't follow sports. I think it's a waste of time. So
I don't consider baseball a sport unless I'm playing it.
Yeah, now playing sports is different. But
yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, sports are way more fun playing than watching.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, wrap it up and call it an evening. And I'm going to be, I'll put this out there like probably Sunday.
Cool.
I appreciate the time. I'd make you dinner too, but I'll UPS it to you. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Overnight. We're having crickets.
Hey, yeah, send me some crickets and grasshoppers. I won't lie. I will try them. If you send them to me, or a deep fried grub worm, maybe.
I've had the grub worms in Mexico, but that took some tequila to get me to try that. It was like on a taco shell. But, and the funny thing was when he would come here, I'd always think, all right, where am I going to take Luis? Unfortunately, I don't know any place around here that makes the bull testicles. That's the only thing I could think of, but it's like they don't have them around here, so I guess I think it's for traveling. No, I'll pass on those. My brother ate a lot of them, he said, before he found out what they were, but I think they were lamb. He was on submarine, so that explains a lot. 150 guys go down and 75 couples come back. All right, Jason.
All right, brother.
Thanks for your time.
All right, peace out.
Take care.